Thank you. Let us pray. Dear Father, thank you for having me here tonight. And thank you for inviting all these people into your house tonight so they could share in your love and in your joy and to deal with their hurts, their habits, and their hang-ups, Lord. Just be there for them, Lord, and like you were there for me. And it's in your precious name I pray. Amen. Okay. I'm going to take you back to where my recovery first started. It was Friday, February 10th, 2017. That is the day I asked a God who I did not believe in to help me. It was a normal work day like any other. Well, while looking back, nothing was normal about being loaded at 10:30 in the morning. As I remember it, I woke up like I had every other day for the past few months and had my coffee, my smoke, and my 2 shots to get the day started. I left home and went to a warehouse to grab some product to deliver to a couple of accounts. On the way to my first account, I was still not feeling quite right, so I stopped into another store and grabbed a couple more shots. So now here it is, 10:30 in the morning, and I'm feeling pretty good, so I thought. On the way to my next delivery, something was different. When I pulled into the back door to make the delivery, the owner of the store answered the door and said good morning. I don't know what came over me, but I was convinced that he knew I was loaded, and it was only 11 o'clock in the morning. My secret was out. I dropped off his cases as fast as I could, and I got the heck out of there. I remember saying to God, please help me. As I drove from that store, I started crying uncontrollably. I pulled into a gas station and parked my car in the back. I honestly didn't know what to do. Something was telling me to pick up the phone and call my father. And this is how the conversation went. Dad, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. What's going on? I said, it's 11 o'clock in the morning and I'm already drunk again. I need help, Dad. Get home, get something to eat. Can you do that for me? I said, I can try. Son, I love you and I'm proud of you, and your mother and I will be there in 7 hours. When my parents got here, they immediately got on the phone and looked for a treatment center to get me in. It was on that day, February 10th, 2017, that I took my last drink or drug. Amen. So Luke 1:49, for the mighty one has done great things for me, and holy is his name. Amen. God is great. My name is Champ, and I'm a grateful follower of Christ in recovery from drugs and alcohol. So this is my story, folks. I was born and raised in Key West, Florida, to 2 wonderful, caring parents, Mike and Sue Jolly. I have an older brother who is a year older than I. We grew up in a very loving household. My parents were always there if we needed them. I remember as a kid always having parties at our house or at relatives' house or at friends' houses. It was Key West, there was always a party. You know, I do remember as well, there was, at these parties, there was always alcohol. I was very young, okay. So as a young kid, I always associated alcohol with everything, with fun, with everything. Wherever we went, there was alcohol, so how fitting is it that I'm standing here today? I hear a lot of people say they turn to alcohol because they never really fit in. It wasn't like that for me. I was a pretty popular kid. I had plenty of friends. I can remember looking back at certain parties after baseball games. You see, after football, baseball, or basketball games on the weekends, all the families would get together at someone's house and throw a party. I distinctly remember there being 2 coolers, one for the kids and one for the grown-ups. Sorry. Okay, after about 2 hours of the party, the grown-ups They really weren't concerned with watching their cooler too well. And this is when my friends and I would grab some beers and sneak off and go behind the shed. I remember my buddies not liking it so much, but that was not the case for me. Man, what have I just discovered? You know, it was instant gratification. I believe I was 12 or 13. From that moment on, I was in love. You see, alcohol seemed to make me funnier, smarter, handsomer, and even more confident than I had ever been. I remember that I could not wait for the weekends to come so that I could have a party at someone's house and we could sneak off behind the shed. I would continue to drink like this every chance I got. Then high school came when I discovered marijuana and cocaine. I was a huge fan because it was a drug that allowed me to drink more. I remember nights in high school where I would not come home and have my parents worried sick. How selfish. Oh, and did I mention between my 8th and 9th grade years, my parents bought their first liquor store. Yeah, I was even more popular now. I would work at the store after school and on weekends, which would allow me to steal beer and liquor for my weekend fun. My family and I went to church for a brief time. It was a Southern Baptist church, and if you know anything about Southern Baptists, alcohol was a no-no. So after my dad purchased his store, we were kind of shunned from the church. This is where I believe I lost faith in God. Thank God he never lost it in me. I had a lot of fun in high school, and after graduating, decided that I want to go to college. The thing was, I hung out with a lot of kids in the grade below me, so I decided to stick around for a year and work. Work for a year to save up so I could save up for college. You know, when I went to college, or as my dad always put it, a college town, because I never went to class. My drinking and drug use got a whole lot worse. I could remember not sleeping for days and feeling completely horrible about myself. After a year and a half of living in Gainesville, my father told me, okay, the vacation's over, time to come home. Because by now we had 3 stores, and he needed me to run one of them. Wow, who needs a college diploma? I landed my dream job. It was at this time in my life when I was drinking and doing cocaine and going out every night. To me, it was okay because I was the boss. I made the schedule, and I was able to sleep in every day. Okay. In August of 1996, I met the woman that I would marry. Her name is Brandy. She is a beautiful woman, and still is today. We dated for a few months, and we found out she was pregnant. I remember being very scared to tell my parents because I didn't know what they would say. We sat them down to tell them, and my mom jumped up and cried. You see, my mom is a teacher, and she loves kids. After becoming a mother, I found out her only goal in life was to become a grandmother. And she was the most wonderful grandmother any grandchild would ever want to have. I remember my dad pulling me outside that night, both of us cracking a beer, and him saying to me, son, are you going to do the right thing? I was a little confused. I wasn't sure, so I asked him, what do you mean? He says, are you going to marry this girl? And as a nervous 22-year-old kid, that's what I did. I asked Brandy to marry me, and she said yes. And on February 22nd, 1997, we were married. And 7 months later, on September 26, 1997, God blessed Brandy and myself with our beautiful, healthy baby girl, Cora Irene Jolly. The next year and a half, I was still drinking, but the cocaine use had subsided. Then we found out we were pregnant with our second child. On September 7, 1999, Cameron Michael Jolly was born. How awesome it is to know that someone will carry on your name. I had imagined what a great father I would be. Coaching my kids in Little League, taking them in the boat, doing the stuff my dad did with me. But there was a problem. Having a wife and kids put a strain on my drinking. I was still working for my father, so I would go to work and drink. There would be some nights when I wouldn't come home. You know, looking back, how selfish. I mean, just horrible. How could I be so selfish to the woman I loved and to the 2 kids that I'd helped bring into this world? But in my mind, it was all good. I was a good father. My kids had clothes. We had a house, 2 cars, a boat. You know, we had everything we wanted. But inside, I was hollow. So, of course, what did I do? I tried to fill that hole with as much alcohol as I could. My marriage got progressively worse, and my kids would see me drunk and passed out on the couch almost every night. What kind of man does this to the people he really loves? You know, I remember coaching my son's baseball team, and after the games, me and a couple of the other fathers would head out behind the outfield fence and proceed to drink until we almost fell down. You know, of course, while we were out there, I would make promises to my wife and kids about how tomorrow, Sunday, we'd go in the boat, we'd go do this, we'd go do that, and, you know, I never did anything with them. You know, my kids stopped believing me, stopped believing in me. Finally, after 8 years of marriage, Brantley finally told me she had enough and she wanted a divorce. I was devastated. How could the woman I loved and taken care of and made 2 beautiful children with not want me anymore? She asked me to move out, and I told her if I was moving, I was leaving town. I told her this town was too small and I could not see her be with anyone else. So 2 days later, I packed my stuff and I left town. I moved to Plant City. Yeah. It was a big town to me. I'm from Key West. Okay. Yeah. So on the second night there, I drank enough beer and enough liquor to dull all the pain. I then proceeded to swallow about 40 Tylenol PMs. When I came to, the police and paramedics were standing over me. They asked me what had happened, and I told them what I had done. They rushed me to the hospital. I should have died that night, but for some reason I didn't. While I was laying in that emergency room, the nurse came in, and I asked her if I was going to die. She looked at me and told me, she says, "We don't know yet. You've done a lot of damage to your liver." The next thing I know, I remember waking up and my dad standing over me crying. This is a man who I admired, I looked up to, and a man I had never seen cry. I felt like a complete failure. I had lost my wife, I lost my kids, and I put my parents through hell. You see, this is what alcohol has done to me. But yet I could not stop drinking. I got out of the high school and started to look for a job. It was hard. I had no college education, and the only thing I knew was liquor. A few months went by, and I got a call from a beer company where I applied. I did that. I got the job and did it for about 6 months, and then I landed a job where I am at today with Southern Wine and Spirits. This meant I had to move from Plant City to Fort Myers. Things were really well. Brandy and I had started talking, and she was telling me that my son wanted to come live with me. I was overcome with joy. Granted, I was still drinking, but not like before. Well, we've all said that. Within a few weeks, my son had moved up, and I was on cloud 9. Brandy and I had decided that we should try to put our family back together, so she left her job and moved up here with my daughter. Things went well for a few years, but my drinking got progressively worse. No matter how many times I told her I would quit or I would slow down, that was never the truth. The day finally came when Brandy and the kids had had enough and asked me to leave the house again. Again, I was devastated, so I got deeper and deeper into the bottle. I was living on my own with no one to answer to, so I filled all my free time with drinking and cocaine, which brings me back to when I arrived at the treatment center. How low had I sunk? I was an absolutely horrible husband and even worse father. I had embarrassed my ex-wife, my kids, my parents, and my employer. I hated myself and everything about me. How could it have come to this? I guess I had finally hit my bottom. We all go down our own path. No one can do it for us except God. I remember one of the first mornings we had group therapy, and we were reciting the Serenity Prayer. After we said the prayer, everyone would say, "Thy will, not mine, be done." I walked up to the therapist and I asked her, I said, I know the Serenity Prayer, but what's this other part? She told me, "Thy will, not mine, be done." I said, I don't get it. She says, "Champ, you have to believe in a power greater than yourself. Look, your way obviously didn't work, or you wouldn't be here. How about giving the big man upstairs a chance?" I told her that I didn't believe in God, and she said, "That's okay. For now, just pick something that brings you peace and joy and pray to that every morning." So I did. While I was in the treatment center, there were two events that took place. First, it was to be my 19th wedding anniversary, and I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of other drunks and drug addicts. Second, my son was arrested for the first time, and I wasn't there. I honestly don't think I'd be standing here in front of you today if I wouldn't have cried out for God's help in that parking lot that day. Upon arriving home, I completely dove into AA. In treatment, it was suggested I get a sponsor and work the steps, so I did. My sponsor is an amazing man. He has always been there for me. I remember struggling so bad with my fourth step, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want anybody to know what I had done. A moral inventory of myself, I had no morals. I didn't want anybody to know my deepest, darkest secrets. My sponsor explained to me, "This is how it works." I said, "Oh, okay." So he says, "Write them down, confess them to God, and I will be right there with you to get you through this." And he was. Sponsorship is a huge deal in my life. You see, for me, it is imperative that I attend regular meetings as well as CR. I have completed my steps, and I try to live in the last three, 10, 11, and 12. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when I was wrong, promptly admitted it. When my head hits that pillow at night, I review my day. I see where I did good, and I see where I did bad. And I ask God to help me get through what I had done wrong. And I also thank him for keeping me sober that night. Amen. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for his knowledge for us and the power to carry that out. This is where I have my alone time with God. I read from the Bible today, and I do a little journaling, and I ask God what his will for me is today. He doesn't always tell me, but like my sponsor told me and a few of my friends in this room tonight, just do the next right thing. It'll be okay. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all my affairs. Sharing with you today is an honor and a blessing. All my friends from the Shores campus, I'm very humbled. I'm usually not at a loss for words, but I really am tonight. You see, I believe that it's God that brought me to AA. And now it's AA that's bringing me even closer to God. You know, I remember attending a meeting soon after I was out of the treatment center. It was at a church in Tice. This is where I first met Pastor Sherry. She probably doesn't remember it, but I can tell you I will never forget it. She was so kind and calm and just full of joy. I knew she had something I wanted. And that's when she told me about the meeting on Saturday nights down at Grace Church at the Fort Myers Shores campus. Never once did she mention she was a pastor. I remember going to that meeting, and it was, I believe it was held in the sanctuary because there was something going on in the Connections Cafe. It's normally not. What a meeting. It was great. You know, my sponsor, who also goes to Grace Church, another God moment, you know, suggested that I check it out. And being new in AA, I did what a good sponsee did, and I checked it out. I went to my first service Sunday, May 7th, 2017. I remember that because it was a week before Mother's Day. And I was asked to, there was a gentleman that worked in the kitchen, and he was going in for surgery, so I was asked if I could help the next week. Well, I haven't been out of the kitchen since. Love you, Lillian. Okay. I remember walking into the sanctuary, and just the sense of calmness came over me. I don't know what it was, but when I walked through those doors, it was honestly the best feeling of my life. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, for some strange reason, I knew I was home. I knew everything was going to be okay. I mean, not to say that there's not trouble in my life, but you know what? With my new family in church and God, I can get through it. I know I can. On Sunday, September 17th, I was baptized in the courtyard of the Shores campus. Pastor Sherry had asked me to write a brief testimony on what it was like before Christ, what had happened, and what it was like now. It honestly, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. Other than my kids being born, I mean, I might even put it above that. I was born again. You know, I never thought I could be forgiven, or anybody could be forgiven for the stuff that I had done. And these people let me know that Jesus died for me, man, so I could be forgiven. Amen. What a feeling. What an absolutely great feeling. Today, by the grace of God, life is good, man. About 3 months after getting out of the treatment center, my daughter asked to move in with me. So she lives with me today. She couldn't stand me before. And now at 21 years old, she's my baby again. I'm still getting divorced to Brandy, but our relationship is great. You know, I think it's been better than it has been in a very, very long time. And I remember her saying not too long ago how I've changed, how I've become a different person, and how proud she was of me. She hadn't said that in a long time. As for my parents, our relationship has never been better. You know, I no longer have to duck their phone calls. I'm honestly, I believe I'm finally the son that they deserve. And it brings great joy to me to be a good person and to be there for them today. Also, in September, I'll be going on a mission trip with this church here. Yeah, we're going to Ghana, Africa. You see, God has a plan for me, and he has a plan for every one of you. Now to him who is able to immeasurably be more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3:20. Not in my wildest dreams could I ever imagine life so blessed, and I owe it all to God. Now, as for my son, we do not speak today. He's battling his own demons, and I pray for him every day. I know today that I could be there for him when he reaches out. And with the power of prayer, I believe he will reach out to me. I know that these sermons and these testimonies get archived, and tomorrow I will send this to him, and I have a message for him. Cameron, I love you, Bubba. When you see this testimony, you find a Bible, and you open up to Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all the joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with his hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Thank you for listening to me tonight. I hope and pray that at least one person got something from this message that I've shared with you tonight. Thank you.